This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's Family.
Well, the headlines just keep coming here in the Valley of the Sports. It's a good time to have a 30-minute nightly sports show and a podcast here. It was Herm Edwards over the weekend. The Cardinals win in thrilling fashion, and then Robert Sarver announces on Wednesday that he is making plans to sell the Phoenix Suns. Let's get right into it with a man who worked for the organization. Now he works at PHNX as a Suns host, our good friend Greg Esposito. Espo, first of all, I guess just in significant days in Suns history, where do you think this ranks?
You know, it's probably right up there because after 18 years and a report that spelled a lot of what went on, but didn't include the 10 years of horrible basketball and financial mismanagement in terms of the basketball product, this is a pretty big day in franchise history, especially when you consider their championship window pretty wide open for whoever comes in next to own this team, and hopefully it's somebody with deep, deep pockets.
And you thought when this came out, and you even read the statement, and it sounds like Robert Sarver is saying, I'm sorry, but is he really sorry with a lot of that? Do you think in his heart of hearts he wanted to make this decision today?
I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know if it's animus or whatever, as the report said. What I do know is based on that statement today, it's a man that doesn't quite understand the weight of what he did, how it impacted those that worked for him and those around him. And, you know, I'm sorry, but second chances come when in 2004 you use a derogatory term and somebody tells you don't use that. In 2008, when you tell a pregnant woman basically that she can't perform the job anymore because she needs to breastfeed and can't do this because she has to take care of her kid, and an employee tells you that's not right, and instead of saying, oh, I want to learn from this, you say, no, you're wrong, you shouldn't question my judgment. That's when you're second chance comes. It's 18 years of behavior and a pattern of that led to this moment. And the fact that it's being blamed on where we are in society, if you read into what's being said, is just, it's not the truth. So.
And you worked for the team. You've been a longtime Suns supporter. You're still entrenched with this team, covering every step of the way. So I know this is personal for you. What has been the conversation like with between you and some of your former colleagues over there?
It's personal to the extent of when I read the report, I could go, yeah, I think I know who that person probably was in certain situations. And the fact that, it's tough. When you grow up loving a franchise, when you get the opportunity to work for them and you go inside and you see some of it, it's difficult. So it was important. I wouldn't say personal because it wasn't as if it was a vendetta or some disgruntled employee kind of thing for anybody. It was important because you have to stand up to things that don't seem right. And there were a lot of brave former and current employees that broke NDAs, that put their careers at risk to talk in this investigation. And today is a bit of vindication for those people, for some of the fans and some of those employees. It's a reward of having faith in humanity in some ways, that the right thing can happen. And I think that's where we sit for a lot of people today.
And for you, going forward here, and it is I guess just entrenched and as bought in as you have been with the Suns as a fan growing up, working for the franchise, now a host covering the franchise. What do you feel like collectively this just does for the players on the team, the people that work inside the organization, and fans?
Well, I think for many, it removes the, how do I morally make this make sense in my mind, rooting for a franchise and in a basketball, what is a kid's game, when there's a report sitting out there of conduct like this. But quite frankly, and Mark, I'm just going to say this, there's still other people. The report talked about the culture, and it said many of the people who made that culture happen have left. there still are some there. And this is about making sure that work environment is safe and a healthy one for anybody working there now and in the future. So new ownership's important, and making sure that they get the right leadership in place to run the business side of things is key in this moving forward as well, so they can ensure that it's a workplace that is safe, and one that is one that people want to go and work every day in.
Is this going to affect the Suns from a business perspective that could have a trickle down on the court at all this year, in your opinion, with Sarver out? And I'm sure there's a lot of people who work over there don't know their next step with a new owner coming in.
Well, I think if this had dragged on and we didn't get to the point we got to today, it could have become a distraction on the court. Obviously would have been on the business side. I think this is, in a lot of ways, a new lease on things for everybody, because what the reports are is there's a lot of deep-pocketed people interested in purchasing this team. And if you're going to do that, you're going to want to spend to win and make a good first impression. And, there's been rumors this could take a couple months. If that person gets in around trade deadline and there's new cash, that can't be a bad thing for sure. I don't think this impacts the play on the court this year, and I think it does help those in the building for a different attitude for sure.
And it certainly changes the tone for Monday's media day for the players. So what sort of messages do you expect us to hear on Monday when we hear from the players for the first time, and Monty Williams and James Jones for the first time, really since the Kevin Durant thing broke?
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm glad that they don't have to be the ones to stand up publicly and put that on their shoulders. I don't think it was a burden that was ever fair of them to have to do, especially when it was the failure of the commissioner to be able to act with further regard. I think we'll hear stories in the future about what really went on and what kind of pressure there was behind the scenes that may or may not have involved the players as well. But I'm glad that they don't have to be the ones that try to take some stance on Monday. I'm sure they will say their piece on how they feel about the treatment of those in the building. I'm sure we will hear that from almost everyone that talks, but I'm glad it's not their responsibility to try to fix the mess that was going on.
No, and certainly, and you think about all those deep-pocketed people that are going to roll in here and have a team that can certainly contend. Do you have any leaders in the clubhouse that you would like to see by the team? I would like to see Artie Moreno get a shot at this, just being around him and the Angels in spring training. I thought he set a really good tone. He's a Phoenix guy. He kind of would get it, and I think it would be special if he could push this team to the finish line.
I can't speak to Artie the person. I've never met him. I am a little worried about when you look at they have Atano and Trout there, and they're wasting the prime there. But that's baseball. Basketball is obviously different. We've heard the name Bob Iger that came up in reports last November, the former Disney CEO who may have interest in buying in and being the lead in an investment group to buy the team. There's been rumors Phil Knight, the co-founder of Nike, is looking for a team after his failed bid to buy the Portland Trailblazers earlier this year. And
I would be worried he would move it to Seattle, though. I would be just a little worried about that.
I don't think anybody should be worried about that. The NBA is not going to allow anybody to move the team for multiple reasons, and one of which is they're not letting them move to Seattle or Vegas because they want the expansion money from there, which would be a lot more to the owners in the league overall, the price tag to have two expansion teams in those cities. I don't think you have to worry about that. And then you're going to hear names like the Bezoses of the world, people with a lot of money that are bored, that are interested as well. I don't know when we're going to hear a real list, but they'll be at some point. But I do have a suggestion, Mark, if you don't mind.
Yes. Are you planning on buying the team?
I'd love to, but my salary is significantly short of that $2.5 billion price tag. But I do think the fans should own this team. I believe in the fans. I've said from the beginning, this team belongs to Phoenix. It belongs to the people who have put 5 decades of their heart and soul into this, that have bought merchandise and everything. So with that in mind, I have started a GoFundMe that you can find at buythesuns.com, BUYthesuns.com. And if we hit that $1 billion mark, we can get in on a group trying to bid to buy this team. If we fall short of that $1 billion mark, well, all that money is going to go to the Time's Up Foundation that helps people who are victims of harassment in the workplace. So at worst, we do some good with the money. At best, hey, we own part of the Suns. And
at best, so okay, let's. I guess it's two at best there, because that would be a great cause, and you really can't lose in that situation. If you were to raise the money, then would you be the governor? Is that kind of how that would work?
No, nobody wants me running it. We'll find somebody else.
I was mostly just to see if you'd still talk to me after that,
Well, Mark, you'd be my head of media relations as the president of the team, so you'd be there. Don't worry.
I'd need to find an assistant. Yeah, for sure. So as far as heading into this season, I mean, does this feel like it's over and done with, and everybody can just sort of rally around the Suns again? Is there any? I would say this franchise led the league in drama since the Dallas loss. I mean, how much of this is just turning a page to a new chapter?
Mark, I've lived in Arizona long enough to never say anything is over till it's actually over. So until there's ink on the paper, we know who the new owner is, and we feel all right about that. I'm not saying anything's all right until that moment, Mark. Just being honest with you.
Well, that's spoken like a true Arizona sports fan there. What do you expect from the team on the court this season? Is this with Chris Paul? Is he going to be Chris Paul? How much do you think that New Orleans series and the Dallas series really showed us what he is?
I don't know. The only people that really know that are the team doctors who know, was COVID, was injuries involved? What was the true picture here? We'll find out in the first 2 or 3 months what Chris Paul actually has in the tank, but I don't think it's just on Chris Paul. We saw Devin Booker finish 4th in MVP voting. DeAndre Ayton now has the money that he was looking for and should have that motivation that we've all hoped will light that fire under him. McHale finished 2nd in Defensive Player of the Year. Cam Johnson grew last year. So I don't think it's all on Chris Paul. I think they'll be a very good team, but they need to upgrade the bench, and find pieces there, backup power forward, point guard as well, that can push them over the top. Good isn't great, and they need to find that greatness when it comes to the playoffs and find a way to win 16 games. The Jazz seem to have a lot of players that could potentially fit the role and are looking to sell, so maybe there's a match there at some point.
All right, so who's most likely to be on the team come, say, the All-Star break or after the trading deadline? Jay Crowder, Kevin Durant, or Bogdanovich?
Bogdanovich, but I don't think any of them have particularly high chances. I think he's probably 35% max, because I think the Suns likely get outbid because he's a good piece. The question is it enough to push you over the top? And it would cost you a lot of your assets. But look, the KD thing is all well and good, but if the Nets wind up playing well, he's not going to be available. So if you have the opportunity to make your team better, go do it. Find the pieces. Do that rather than holding on to a pipe dream, is what I say.
All right, another constructive conversation here in the Extra Point Podcast. Should we start calling you Governor Greg Esposito?
Please no.
Anticipation of the GoFundMe
Please
taking
no.
off. Okay, we'll come up with something else. By the way, great studio. Is that where can we find that online? When are you doing your next podcast in there?
Yeah, go to the PHNX Sports YouTube page or PHNX_sports on Twitter. You can see everything we got going. We've got every day from 11 a.m. Into the evening. We have programming live and local for you, talking about your teams that you want to hear about.
And will you be penning a piece after this? We saw the piece that you wrote about Sarver that was very well done. How often do you take pen to paper or hands to keyboard?
I don't write that often. I don't know if I'll dust the keyboard off again, but we have an immensely talented writer who you've had on before, Gerald Bourget, that does fantastic work and writes on a daily basis in regards to the Suns, as well as Craig Morgan covering the Coyotes, Howard Balzer on the Cardinals, and Jesse Friedman writing about the Diamondbacks. So if you love written rather than YouTube, we got you covered there too.
Steel cage match between your staff. Who wins and why?
Certainly not me. Probably Derek Montilla on our Diamondbacks beat, because he actually works in professional wrestling on the side. So that's who I'd take.
Does he? Is he like a villain? I didn't know. I mean, I knew he's into it, but what is he? Yeah. He's
a commissioner of one of the local wrestling groups and plays a heel. So, yeah, I definitely think he'd win in a cage match. Just because he understands the rules. I don't. So.
All right. You just gave me a story idea. So, thanks for your time today, man. Appreciate it.
Pleasure as always.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.